Hi everybody, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome. If you've never been here before, never watched any of my videos, have no idea what I do here on my channel, I cover true crime cases, and all the cases that I cover are a little bit older. They're all basically 20 years or older, so if that's something that you might be interested in, maybe go down below, click that subscribe button, and also make sure to turn on the post notifications to be notified every time that I upload. So today we are going to be diving into another vintage and vanished case. If you are unfamiliar here on my channel, I've had a series for about 6 years now where I cover vintage cases of people who have mysteriously vanished. And this one will definitely leave you scratching your head. This is the unsolved disappearance of Etta Riel. Etta H. Riel was born on May 4th of 1914 to parents Joseph and Rose Riel in Providence, Providence County, Rhode Island. Very little is known about Etta's life growing up, but we do know that in 1934, at the age of 20, she was living with her family in Oxford, Worcester County, Massachusetts, an area roughly 35 miles northwest of where she was born. Etta had graduated high school in 1932 from Oxford High School. While there, she had met a boy named Henry Sawin. They were high school sweethearts. His nickname was Red, and this is what she usually referred to him as. The two fell in love and began a romantic relationship. The reason for their split would be college. They would stay in close contact though, despite Etta continuing to live in the area of Worcester to attend Worcester State Teachers College, and Henry moving out of state to further his education at Bates College in Lewiston, Maine. Lewiston is roughly 170 miles northeast of Oxford. The drive is about 2.5 hours. Etta would become pregnant, and she was firm that the father of her unborn child was Henry. She made it known to people closest to her that there were no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Henry, on the other hand, was not too sure of that. In May of 1934, Etta filed a paternity suit against Henry before her child was even born. On September 22nd, she gave birth to a baby girl that she named Alma Hart Riel. Her baby took her own last name, I'm guessing due to the fact that Henry wasn't wanting to take much part in being a father. As I'm sure we all know, having a child at this time in history out of wedlock, just like so many other times in history before it, was extremely frowned upon. So you can only imagine the kind of scrutiny Etta faced from family, friends, and her community. Let's fast forward though 2 months to Wednesday, November 21st. The next day, November 22nd, Alma would have been turning exactly 2 months old. The paternity hearing was scheduled. It was set to be held at Webster's District Court. Henry was still adamant that Alma was not his biological child, but during this evening, Etta and Henry had spent hours together. What their conversations consisted of is unknown, but based on reports, Etta had been at her friend Teresa's home. Teresa would tell authorities that around 10 p.m., Henry randomly showed up to her home and insisted he and Etta renew their friendship. Teresa claimed that Etta wanted no part of it. At this time, she was just completely over it. It was Henry that convinced her. Teresa stated that from there, Etta claimed that she would only speak to Henry further if Teresa was also present. Henry agreed. Teresa accompanied them, and within no time, Henry drove her back home and left with Etta. What Henry and Etta were doing for the next few hours is also unknown, but we do know that they arrived back at Etta's home at about 1:30 in the morning. An Oxford police officer who just so happened to be in the area would verify that he saw Henry's vehicle outside the Riel home sometime after midnight. People who saw Etta earlier in the day before her outing with Henry stated that she had been extremely nervous. She seemed depressed and anxiety-ridden over the hearing taking place the next day. After Etta arrived home, though, around 1:30 a.m., it was as if her emotions and state of mind did a complete flip. She was full of energy, ecstatic, seemed hopeful for her future. Her reasoning may surprise you. Etta walked through the door of her family home in high spirits and informed everyone present that she and Red made up, that she was going to be leaving for New York City with him that night, that he had a job in New York in a garage, and they were set to marry. This obviously took the family by complete surprise. She quickly packed a travel bag, and her sister Alice asked her, "What about Alma?" And Etta told her that she would be back within a week to pick up her daughter. She had no money on her though, so she took $2 in cash from the family fund, walked out the door, and left in Henry's vehicle. I'm going to assume he had been parked outside during the entire time that she had been inside getting ready to leave with him. This would be the last time anyone in her family ever saw her again. The next day, the day of what was supposed to be the paternity hearing, Etta's sister saw Henry, and of course, she was completely confused because he was by himself. She thought that the both of them had booked it to New York City the night before. He told her that they never made these plans and that he never told Etta he had any desire to pursue a future with her. Henry would soon after be questioned by local authorities, and when questioned, he told them that Etta had confessed to him that she did not even believe herself that her daughter was actually his, and as a result, was not looking forward to the hearing. There was no escaping the fact that a police officer had spotted his vehicle outside the family home. He did not deny them being together and her leaving with him after midnight. He told authorities that he had dropped her off during the early morning hours at Union Station in Worcester for the train to New York City. Union Station was a station for trains and buses, and she was going to be taking the train. Henry also stated Etta had been very down in life recently, and that was something that they should take into consideration. When it comes to her alleged hopelessness, it seems that friends of hers backed up this claim, stating in person she had made this known and also in letters. It was family members, though, that denied the claim that she was depressed, especially suicidal. Henry's theory for why she left was that she possibly left the area to take her life somewhere. A little over a week after what was supposed to be the paternity hearing, Etta's attorney, Frank Jablonski, received a telegram. The telegram stated, "Henry is right," and ordered her attorney to drop the case against Henry. It was sent by someone who claimed to be Miss Etta. Authorities were able to track the telegram to New York City. It had been sent by a caller from a payphone in the area, and the caller gave a fake address. This lead would be a dead end. They never discovered, still to this day, who actually sent the telegram, if it was Etta or someone else. I do want to mention that at this time, they could not drop any charges against Henry without Etta stating in person she wanted them dropped. So basically, without Etta present, this paternity suit was just pending. Etta's loved ones truly had no idea what to think. They missed her dearly and hoped above anything else nothing horrible had happened to her. It was hard for them to believe that she would not at least check in on her baby girl left at home. It was the public, though, that had a very hard time believing that somebody like Henry Sawin would have done something to Etta. As the Bangor Daily News would cover on February 12th of the following year, he was active in athletics and dramatics at Bates. He was referred to as a good student, and he was highly regarded on campus. Henry, though, at some time during the year prior, left college, and his reasoning is unknown. I was unable to find out exactly what time he left the school and how close it was to Etta's disappearance, whether it was before her disappearance or after her disappearance. This would become a huge investigation, but surprisingly, there would be no newspaper articles ran regarding this disappearance until February 7th. 77 days after she went missing. The investigation into her disappearance was ordered by District Attorney Owen Hoban. The detective on the case was Edward J. McCarthy, and two state detectives, John Horgan and Joseph Crescio, had also been sent from Boston to help in the search. During this time, Deputy Sheriff Arthur A. Keefe of Oxford had a theory of his own that she may have been killed and her remains may have been placed in someone else's grave in the hopes no one would locate her. District Attorney Hoban made it known to the public that they would not be digging up any local graves unless they were all out of other options. Around this time, it was released to local papers that although Henry claimed he had no romantic interest in Etta anymore, they had actually located love letters where marriage was discussed recently. Now, were there actually letters, or was this completely fabricated to get Henry to talk because they believed that he had been involved in some way? We don't know. Etta's sister Alice would inform authorities that Henry may act like he wanted nothing to do with her sister, but he had actually been paying her college tuition, and they stayed in very close contact, even allegedly being sexually active together. Of course, they were possibly sexually active due to the fact that Alma existed, and most everyone believed her to be Henry's except, of course, Henry. They had questioned him prior, but during a 3-hour questioning in February, Henry claimed he had no knowledge of where Etta was and was not responsible for her condition. He stated again that Etta confessed he was not her daughter's father. He went on to tell authorities that Etta had mentioned 2 other men, both married, that she had been sexually active with. Henry claimed that Etta felt like if she brought him to court, that it would push him to marry her. He went on to say, "It's ridiculous to say I wrote her love letters mentioning marriage. I had no intention at any time of marrying her." They ultimately discovered nothing new from these hours of questioning. I'm sure that you might be wondering if anyone had spotted Etta anywhere during this time. Well, Hugh Stacy, whose brother William was married to Etta's sister Angelina, had been arrested for misappropriating a vehicle, driving a vehicle without the owner's permission, and was being held at Salem jail when he told authorities that he was sure he had spotted Etta in a streetcar in Copley Square in Boston the Thursday before. Obviously, they took this claim seriously, but when it was time to speak to people actually working on her case, he told them that he wasn't too sure the woman that he saw was actually her. Authorities were not too positive there was any truth to his story. He was ultimately deemed an untrustworthy source. Then a new bit of alleged information was discovered by authorities that added an entirely new element of mystery to the case. Employees of Union Station, a train dispatcher and station master, stated that 3 bizarre phone calls had been made to the station between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. on November 22nd of 1934. The first call was said to come from a man who claimed he was an Oxford switchboard operator, and he asked for the Riel girl from Oxford to be found and detained. The other 2 calls sounded to be from women, both asking if the girl had been located. Police questioned Henry, Etta's friends, and her family, and no one claimed to have made these calls. Authorities discovered, though, that at least for the first call, no calls had gone through the town's phone exchange around that time to the station. But why would employees make up something like this? Had there been any calls at all? They could not prove this as fact. Receiving this information, though, regarding these calls gave the main detective on the case so much hope. He thought, and he told local newspapers, that he was going to find Etta within 48 hours. He would be mistaken. In early March, they would bring Lieutenant Joseph L. Ferrari onto the case. He had been a well-respected state detective and was assigned to the case by Paul Kirk, the Commissioner of Public Safety. They held hope that these new set of eyes would get them somewhere new. Again, they were mistaken. Investigators at this time stated that they were positive the calls and the telegram were connected, and since the information regarding those had been released to the public, dozens of phone calls were coming in from people claiming they knew who called and or sent the telegram. Although they could not prove that any calls had come into Union Station, authorities still chose to believe that the individuals working at Union Station were not lying. Authorities spoke to a train conductor, and he stated that a lone woman had rode on his train for the 2:15 train from Worcester to New York. He was unable to verify, though, if this was Etta. As the Boston Globe would report, the search for Etta Riel was one of the largest searches ever conducted in that part of the state. Over 200 volunteers, including local police, state police, men from the Civilian Conservation Corps, detectives, and local civilians helped in the attempt to locate the missing mother. They scoured the woods and dragged 10 or so ponds looking for her body. They even carried a photo of her and walked around the area asking if anyone had seen her. The thing is, though, so many people claimed that they had. There were so many reported sightings of Etta Riel. For one, there had been a man from Putnam, Connecticut, who claimed that he traveled to Florida with a woman who he thought could have been Etta. This lead, though, went nowhere. Roughly 3 months after her disappearance, though, a local man told authorities that a woman strongly resembling Etta asked for a place to lodge for the night, and he allowed her to. Around the same time, an owner of a local beauty parlor who claimed he knew the Riel family well stated that he actually saw Etta and had a several-minute-long conversation with her. He claimed that at the time that he had this interaction with her, he actually had no idea that she was a missing woman woman, or else he would have went to authorities. One of the strangest and most unsettling instances of someone claiming they had seen Etta, though, came from a woman out of Weymouth, Massachusetts. This woman's name was Frances Bottomley, and in early August of 1935, she phoned police headquarters from a drugstore in Weymouth Landing around 10:45 p.m. She told them she was with Etta and they needed to come pick her up. Officers arrived at the scene, but no one was there. A patrolman named Robert Thibodeau was used as a lookout at the drugstore in case the woman phoned the headquarters again. She did roughly 15 minutes after the first call, saying the same thing, that Etta Riel was at the drugstore and wanted to be picked up because she was going to turn herself in. The patrolman was able to catch Frances at this time and take her in for further questioning. Frances stated that she had been with Etta and tried to convince her to turn herself in, but both times Etta got cold feet and fled the area. She told authorities that she had supper with Etta earlier. Authorities took Frances to the restaurant she claimed they had eaten at in Quincy Square. Officers talked to the cashier and counterman at the restaurant, and both verified that Frances was there earlier and ate dinner with another woman, but they didn't know who this woman was, and they could not verify if it was Etta or not. Frances stated that from there, the two of them hopped on a bus to Weymouth Landing, where she would make the phone calls to headquarters. Frances stated that she had met Etta a few times before around Boston and they became well acquainted with each other. While in custody, though, she took covers from the bed in her jail cell and tried to hang herself. She sustained no injuries from the suicide attempts, though. They brought in one of Etta's sisters, Sarah, and she claimed that this was a woman she had never seen before and not one of Etta's known friends. It seems, though, that Frances did tell authorities that she had met Etta after November 22nd of the year before, when she had vanished. It was reported that Frances had a family in Portland, Maine, was divorced, and used to have a job as a stenographer. Things seemed to have gone downhill in her life, and she had been unemployed for about 3 years at this time, with a total of $5.90 in her pocketbook. Weymouth police were informed by Boston police that she had actually gone to them multiple times prior with supposed information regarding local cases. Authorities would end up discrediting her entire story, and she was sent to the Boston Psychopathic Hospital for a 10-day evaluation for mental health concerns. And that was the end of that lead. Like I stated before, District Attorney Hoban was completely against them digging up any local graves, but they would. They dug up a few graves at different points. There was talk that she was buried in a grave specifically at North Cemetery in Oxford. One grave dug up was one originally dug between the end of October 1934 and beginning of January 1935. They also dug up the grave of a 32-year-old man who was buried the day after Etta went missing. Someone said that they believed she had been buried under the coffin. No other bodies, though, besides the man's, were found in that spot, and he was reburied as soon as possible. They mostly did these digs to ease the minds of her loved ones. Many people working on the case, though, believed Etta to be deceased, possibly murdered, or that she had committed suicide. District Attorney Hoban, though, for many years after her disappearance, believed her to still be alive out there somewhere, that she left on her own accord. During these years, Etta's daughter, Alma, was being raised by Etta's family. Henry had no involvement in her upbringing. Henry told authorities that the last time that he ever saw Etta, that he told her that he was going to make it public that she had been with other men, and that she told him that if that information was going to get out to the public, that she might as well just leave town. Now, did this actually happen, or was this a story that he made up? We don't know. What we do know, though, is that Alma grew up. She had married a man named Maurice Woodman. She moved to Franklin, Massachusetts, worked as a reporter and secretary, and raised 5 children. Maurice passed in 1982, and she later remarried and became Alma Conlon. Growing up, though, she was told that her aunt and aunt's husband were actually her mother and father. They told her about her real mother when she was a teenager. She was stunned. That was the moment that changed her life forever. They told her that they suspected her real father to be Henry Sawin, but they actually lied to her and told her that he had died. I believe they simply wanted to protect her and knew that he did not want to be a father, or at least father her. I would say that they didn't want her to be hurt in the long run if she chose to reach out to him. They were well aware that he was still alive and still living in the area. In 1986, though, Alma saw in a local newspaper that a local man to Worcester named Henry Sawin had just celebrated his 50th anniversary, meaning he married in 1936. Alma stated, "A lot of people think that I want to find my father just for retribution, but that's not the only reason. I want to know who I am." Alma, 55 at the time, in July of 1990, sued Henry Sawin, then a 78-year-old retired envelope maker. Her overall goal was to have the state probate and family court declare him to be her biological father. She was not asking for any money. She just wanted it to be official. In August of 1992, when it was taken to court officially, Judge Sweeney discarded the entire case, claiming she was trying to sue someone under a state paternity law made for children. Alma's lawyer was her son-in-law, Paul Carlucci, and he appealed the decision. The thing is, though, that Henry, without being asked by the court, took the paternity test. Paul stated that through DNA tests and blood tests, it did declare Henry the biological father of Alma. But Paul did not provide this proof in court. There are many reasons that these tests may not be presented during a paternity hearing. From my knowledge back then, it mostly came down to a dispute of authenticity. Sometimes a court may find issues with where or how the tests were conducted. It was taken to court again 2 years later. The Supreme Judicial Court ultimately dismissed her paternity suit. It was the same outcome as before. The court stated the complaint must allege some adequate reason for seeking a paternity determination. A determination of paternity in this case, made in the abstract, cannot be justified. Henry's attorney, Carol Lynn May, stated, "Our client's position is, it always has been, that there is no basis to this claim. We're glad to see the court has stepped in and brought this matter to conclusion." Henry made no public comments regarding the case, and he would pass away at the age of 84 on May 3rd of 1998. Alma herself passed away on November 1st of 2006 at the age of 72, never finding out what happened to her mother when she was just 2 months old. She only had her mother in her life for 2 months, and a father, if it really was Henry, who never wanted to be her father. From everything that I read, because there were a few articles that were released in the early 90s where Alma told her story, she overall just wanted some sort of peace. She just wanted to be able to claim some part of her story. Of course, with a case like this, it may be an open case, but that doesn't mean that it's an active one. A neighbor of the Riel family, Merritt Harrington, stated, "She'd had that baby. I don't think she'd go and leave on her own. No way. She wasn't that way at all." Many believed that the only thing that would have kept Etta from her loved ones, especially her daughter, would have been murder. A few popular detective magazines covered this case back in the day, and one had even offered up a $1,000 reward for anyone who came forward with information that helped solve her disappearance. But still it remained unsolved. There are also many people through the years that believed that she never left the area and that Henry tricked her into thinking that they were leaving to New York to get her away from home so he could take her life and dispose of her remains somewhere, and that she's just never been found. It really makes you think, did Henry know that Alma was his biological daughter and he wanted no part of raising her or financially supporting her, so he got rid of her mother so he hopefully did not have to? Or possibly she had left the area on her own accord, but something happened to her while she was in New York, and that was the reason that she never made it home. Her family, though, always found it very hard to believe that she would have never reached out if she just lived out her life somewhere else. They always believed that she had been met with foul play, whether that was Henry or someone else. I am very eager to see what you all have to say about this one though, so leave any of your thoughts or opinions about this case down below in the comments. This case was so insanely interesting for me to research, but we do have to remember that even though this disappearance occurred in 1934, some of her family members are still around today, of course, generations later. My heart truly goes out to them because I could not imagine having a mystery in my family that was this long running. But thank you all for taking a little bit of time out of your day to hear about this case. case. If there are any other cases that you possibly want me to cover here on my channel, make sure to send those requests over to gabulosiscaserequests@gmail.com. Have an amazing rest of your day. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next one.